Good afternoon. In next episode of OPOstories from the NBA, my today guest is Rex Walters. Thank you, Rex, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. No, thanks for having me.
Former NBA player, New Jersey Nets, Philadelphia 76ers, Miami Heat, currently assistant head coach in New Orleans Pelicans. At the beginnings, I was asked to send greetings for your colleague, also assistant coach, Fred Winson, because
yes.
in season 2001-2002, he played in Poland in team Śląsk Wrocław, another nice Polish words. And the great greetings are from his teammates, Captain Maciej Zieliński. So as me, Przemysław Opłocki, really nice Polish names. So please say hello to him.
I will do that. Fred and I go way back. We actually played against each other when we were in the ABA, the old American Basketball Association. So Fred and I go back a ways, but it was good to reconnect with him this year. So I will definitely let him know.
Okay, so we've got memories.
In Poland, for sure.
Okay, great. And also it's nice when I see that you've got white polo, I've got red polo, so you've got the Polish and the Japanese as well, colors.
That's right. That's right. I'm representing the Pelicans with my Pelican shirt, free shirts. If you give me a free shirt, I'll wear it. So they hooked me up.
Okay, so we start with the questions about your NBA career as a player. But I would like to ask about some beginnings. Who was your favorite player when you were a kid, and also how basketball appeared in your life?
Okay, well, favorite player growing up for a long time was Julius Erving, Dr. J. But I was also a big fan of Danny Ainge, who's now actually, people probably know him because he's president, I believe, president of the Boston Celtics for player development. Kyle Macy was also a player that played for the Chicago Bulls, played at the University of Kentucky. Those are guys that when I saw them, I said, okay, I might be able to do this. They're both kind of look like me, same complexion. Good players, could shoot it, played the right way. And I was the youngest of three. So my brother was 10 years older than me. My sister's about 7 years older than me. And I grew up in a very athletic family. My father was a good athlete, ran track, was in the service. My brother played all the sports, and basketball just kind of gravitated to me. And so at a young age, I had a hoop in my front yard. I would shoot every day. We had a rule at my house that if you don't shoot 100 free throws a day, you don't get a ride to practice. So I would always be out there playing and just fell in love with the game. And from about fourth grade on, I just always played basketball. And so that's how I got into the game. My father was my first coach. And then I had a lot of good coaches after that, and was fortunate enough to play at the University of Kansas, and then play in the NBA for 7 years, and then went overseas for a few years. Played in the Spanish ACB league. I don't know if it's still called that, but was very good basketball. And then played in the ABA, like I talked about with you, Fred, against Fred Vinson. We won an ABA championship. People don't know that Kevin Pritchard, who's now the general manager of the Indiana Pacers, was my coach. So I've been really fortunate to have a good career.
When you come back to NBA night, the draft night in 1993, when New Jersey Nets selected you with the 16th pick, what was the feeling that you are finally NBA, the dreams come true? How do you remember the day?
It was a great day. I was with a lot of family and friends at the house. I didn't go to the draft that night. People had me anywhere from first round to second round to not drafted. So my own home newspaper did not have me getting drafted. So there were some concerns where I was going to go. My agent, who at the time was Bill Duffy, who's one of the great agents in basketball, was very confident I'd be going in the first round. Just didn't know where, because I'd visited a lot of different organizations: the Seattle Supersonics, now the Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, New Jersey, Atlanta. It was really a whirlwind going all the way up into the draft of all the places I visited and worked out for. I had a good workout with the Nets. They unfortunately lost a great, great player in Drazen Petrovic, so there was a need at the shooting guard spot. And when my name was called, I got a chance to talk to Willis Reed, talk very briefly to Chuck Daly. And then my friends and I, we went out and had a really good dinner, had a great time. And then maybe a day or two later, I flew out to New Jersey to play in Summer League. So it all came together, and I was off and playing basketball in Summer League.
And how do you remember this time spent in New Jersey Nets? Because you've got really talented young duo, Kenny Anderson and Derek Coleman, and it was the duo who played in the starting lineup in the All-Star game. So there were big expectations from them. Do you think that, or in a different way, what happened that there wasn't success in this team as it's supposed to be?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, they were great players. Derek Coleman and both Kenny Anderson were all-stars. The loss of Drazen really affected that team. I was not a player like Drazen. Drazen was a scorer, a sniper, a great long-range shooter, had no conscience, but great confidence. I viewed myself more as a playmaker, could shoot it, but also could make some plays off the bounce. And I was nowhere near the player than Drazen Petrovic was. They did bring in Kevin Edwards, who was a very good player as well. But you lose a player like Draz, who was an all-star, who was one of your top shooting guards, along with Kenny and with Derek. That team now could truly be a playoff team if you put other pieces around them. I wouldn't have been drafted if Drazen hadn't passed away. Which might have been better for me, to be quite honest, going to another team. Because I was more of a combo 1-2-2-1. Drazen was a straight shooting guard scorer. So I think that really affected Kenny and Derek. And now more focus was on them, more pressure was on them to do more. Whereas Drazen really took a lot of pressure off of them, because now you have three great players, and there was three great players that were really building towards something special. I think Chuck Daly probably left sooner because he knew with the loss of Draz that they weren't going to be truly a competitor to, maybe win an Eastern Conference championship and play for a finals. With that loss, that was a big one that really affected those two. But they were great players, really good teammates. We had a lot of fun. I was there for about 2.5 years. I was traded my third year to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned about Chuck Daly, what did you learn from him as a player and also as a future coach?
Well, he was a great coach and a great psychologist, I would say. He understood what buttons to push. He always talked about, and I thought this was really neat as I talked to other coaches, his job as the coach, he felt like my job is to help the plane take off and make sure that the plane landed safely. And he was great at that. Each game, he would put us together, put us in situations. He understood, obviously coaching the Detroit Pistons, he understood what high level basketball looked like. And so he was a master motivator. He really got the most out of our team. We made it to the playoffs that year. We lost to the Knicks. And then like I said, I think he knew this wasn't, and he wanted to compete for championships. He wanted to win and have another run like he had with the Detroit Pistons, and that wasn't going to be the case in New Jersey. But I took a lot of things away from how we guarded single doubles, how we guarded pick and roll, a lot of his terminology. I still will say, just out of habit and out of reference to Coach Daly. So learned an awful lot from my time, just a year with Coach Daly, God rest his soul.
As I mentioned, you play also in 76ers when Allen Iverson appeared in the team. I'm really curious because we know his personality. We know that he was hard-working guy. Of course, we know this video about the practice, but as usually media took one word, one sentence and create a story with it. I talked about him with Mark Jackson about this practice, and he told me that he was also tough. He also wanted to compete, and if he do it the same in the game and in the practice, probably he will have more injuries. But when I want to ask you, you were in the team when he was rookie.
Yes.
Did he? And usually rookies bring coffee, donuts, take some shoes, and so on. I really cannot imagine Allen Iverson with all those rookie duties.
No, you know, he was a great rookie. He was a great teammate, but he was from very early on, we knew that he was going to be the franchise player. And that was obvious. And we had great players in Jerry Stackhouse. Jimmy Jackson was also on that team. But Allen was another level. Obviously, a Hall of Famer, an All-Star, an MVP. You could see that right away. He could do some things on the court that you couldn't coach, you couldn't teach. He already had that. He came in great shape, and he was a hard worker in practice. I think that over time, though, and you'll even see it today, teams don't practice quite as hard as they used to because of injury. But I remember we ran the mile run. He ran the first lap and a half backwards. He ran the laps backwards and won by about 200 yards. And he was in phenomenal shape. He and Vernon Maxwell were the two best athletes and the two best shape athletes I had never, ever been around. And I was always one that really prided myself on being in the best shape and being the best shape on the team. Well, Allen had something different, you know, pumping through his veins that I hadn't seen before. But he was a great rookie. He was a great teammate. He wanted to win desperately, badly. I thought that first year he was learning how to compete in the NBA. And then in the second and third year, as he came with Larry Brown, he really understood how to win at a very high level. I wasn't there for all of that. I was only there for his first 2 years. I got let go in the third, but was a great guy with a great heart. People, the whole practice interview or press conference, I don't think people totally understood that. Like, all of us as teammates knew what he was about. He was about winning. He was about laying it all on the floor. But at the same time, at 6'1", maybe, and 165 pounds soaking wet, if he would have come and played like that every practice and every game, he wouldn't have lasted. It's just impossible. 82 games is a lot of games. It's more than, and against the very best players in the world. So in some ways, you understand that a guy can't come to work every day for practice and compete and play like that, be on the floor, take charges, put his nose for loose basketballs. That's how he played. And if he would have done that every day, he would have had a very short career.
And after 76ers, you play also in Miami Heat, and then, as you mentioned, you go overseas and play in Spain. And how it was different for you, because you pretend to play in the NBA, as you mentioned, 82 regular season games, playoffs, there are extra games, and Europe there's different schedule.
It is. It was a big change, and you know, playing in Miami was great because that was the first time, because I had a different coach every year, and then when I got to Miami, I had the same coach. Pat Riley was the same coach, and really saw a vision of what he wanted to accomplish each day in practice, each game, truly competing for championships. I hadn't seen that before, and I hadn't seen that type of organization where everyone in that organization was focused on one common goal. In New Jersey, it didn't seem that way. In Philadelphia, it didn't seem like that. And that's why Miami's always so good every year. But I go from there, and in my third year, I was let go. I went over and played in Spain. I was battling some injuries, and it was a big change. I never heard of siesta before. Like, everything closed down in Spain between 12 and like 4 o'clock. We practiced twice a day. One was in the morning, and you would shoot, and then you'd come back at night and really play. The play level was good in the ACB. It wasn't quite the NBA, but also the biggest difference was the ball movement. They really put a premium on player movement, ball movement, not worrying as much about the shot clock, not playing with great pace, but that didn't mean necessarily shooting the ball quickly, which was a change for me. In the NBA, the biggest thing I always heard was if you're open, shoot it. Like, we want you to shoot the basketball. When in Spain, it was like, no, we want you to move the ball. We want you to make the defense make a mistake. And so that was a big change for me. And especially when I went from being a guy that was probably not very much a starter, every once in a while a starter, sometimes in the rotation, sometimes not, to being a guy that, okay, hey, we need you to, you know, score for us, put points on the board for us, you make your teammates better, defend. That was a change too, because I hadn't experienced that since college. In college, I was expected to do those things. Now back in Spain, I was expected to do those things again. But unfortunately, my body wasn't quite the same at that point. At 29, 30, 31, my body was starting to break down. And, obviously my career pretty much ended over there.
For a while, play in Leon, really nice city with the amazing cathedral. So I guess that's also the chance to meet the Spanish culture was something really added value for you.
Yeah, it was beautiful. My wife really enjoyed it there. We went again to the Canary Islands and played for Leon in Spain, and beautiful country, beautiful place. And like I said, I would have really enjoyed it. I was a very competitive player, very competitive person. So really, I didn't see as much as I probably should have. I really wanted to, like when I went to Leon, they were getting ready to get almost being relegated to the second division. So there was a lot of pressure. And then I hurt myself, I want to say in like the third game. Then I went back 2 years later and I tore my calf in like the 7th or 10th game. So I was always injured, always having issues over there. So it wasn't a great experience for me, although it was a beautiful place. People were very good to me. The basketball is very high level, but unfortunately the body wasn't cooperating at that time of my life. And I came back and I played in the ABA a little bit, broke my finger again, had some issues, and then finally hung it up after that.
Mm-hmm. In Miami, when you played at Florida, the assistant coach was Stan Van Gundy. Now in season 2020 to 21, you are again, but now in a different role. He's the head coach in New Orleans Pelicans, your assistant coach. And how looks your cooperation? And does this chemistry from the time when you were in the Miami Heat makes that it's easier for you, or you understand each other easier?
Well, it's interesting because the game was so different back in the 2000s. It's such a different game. It was much more inside out. Now it's more outside, inside, back to the outside. The NBA game now, you don't have as much of the post play. You don't have the big physical post up players that they had back then. But the one thing about, Stan was when I played, every time I went in there on an off day, when, after practice, before practice, when the ball hit the floor, he was down there and we would get to work. And so I think he respected my work ethic, my competitiveness. I wasn't a great player, but I was competitive and wanted to be good. We kind of stayed in touch after that. He left Miami after becoming a head coach, went to Orlando. We talked a few times then. I would go out there and watch Summer League and watch how he worked. And then when he got the opportunity in Detroit, he brought me on board, first as the G League coach and then as an assistant with him in Detroit. And I'm really amazed his work ethic and his attention to detail and how much he puts into it. It's really, for me, just so impressive. And it challenges me to be a better coach because I just have a much greater understanding of how hard he works at it, how much he invests in terms of his time to truly put his players in position to be successful. I do understand, I probably know him a little bit better than some other guys, but the one thing about Stan is there's not a lot of fluff or BS with him. He's going to work at it really hard. He's going to have a great understanding of it, and he's going to tell you the truth. And he's going to tell you the truth in a way that you can handle it, both as a coach and as a player. And I think that's what really truly makes him a great coach.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about some what I want to ask in the next question about it in the previous questions. I'm really curious about how could you describe Rex Walters as a coach?
Wow, I mean, it's hopefully it's constantly evolving and changing as well. I'd like to think that I work extremely hard and make sure that I'm never going to say something or do something with a player that I haven't put an awful lot of thought into. I know it's going to have a positive impact on his game, whether it's video, whether it's on the floor. I'm going to push you to try to be the best player that you can be. Same thing with the team. I'm never going to say something to the team. I'm never going to say something to a player that I don't truly believe I know works and can help our team play at a higher level. So that's really my focus as an assistant coach. As a head coach younger, I was hair on fire, very competitive, wanted to get after it, and my teams kind of fit that mold as well. I think at 51 now, I'm a little bit calmer. I'm a little bit more low key. But at the same time, when I say something, I truly mean it. And it's only to, number one, make you better as a player, and most importantly, make our team play better when we're on the floor.
Mm-hmm. I would like now to focus at New Orleans Pelicans. And when you look at the list of aims from the beginning of the season and at the end, which aims are done, you made it, and which are not?
Well, I think number one, it was a very difficult season. We had, and Stan's a guy that's a detail guy. He puts an awful lot of thought. Well, we found out we were finally going to have the season. We had very little time to prepare with a new team and a new roster, and for the players to have a new coaching staff. And we had about 6 days of training camp. Well, usually you have a little bit more time than that to kind of put together your package. We had a little different defensive philosophy that we were going to try to put into place with very little time to do it, and for players that had never played in that type of system. And it paid some pretty good dividends early. But over the course of the season, we had to make some adjustments, and we're making adjustments on the fly with not a lot of practice. So it's really interesting. We started the season offensively really struggling, but our defense was really good. And then it kind of flipped over the course of time, where our defense was pretty darn good, but our offense wasn't quite the same. And then you put all that in the fact that we had new team, new players, we had a trade, and we had some injuries that really affected us. Not having Josh Hart towards the end of the season really affected us. We made a trade that ended up, in some ways really good for us. James Johnson really came in and did some good things for us. But then, Nickeil Alexander-Walker missed some time. Then towards the end, we basically lost pretty much everybody, with Steven Adams being out, Brandon Ingram being out, Zion being out, and then eventually Zoe being out. So the one good thing that we took out of this is defensively, we got better over the course of the season. Started really good. Then in the middle, it really dipped. And then towards the last quarter of the season, I thought defensively really made some great progress. That was a good thing, because we really want to have a defensive mindset. I think for teams to really be successful in the NBA, you're going to have that. I think as an offensive team, I think we want to put more shooting around Zion and Brandon. I think that's really important for us. I think that Point Zion was a big thing too. Having him on the ball more, having him initiate offense is important. And I think the last part of it is just our competitive IQ. We lost a lot of games, a lot of very close games that we probably could have won, but that's part of being a young team and going through the fire and, learning what you don't know, you know what I mean? And I think for this team, they didn't know they didn't know. I think now they know they don't know, and that's going to help us, right? Our competitive IQ, and maybe adding a few pieces here. I really don't know what's going to happen with our roster, but I think us going through that, it's really going to make us a better team going forward.
As a fan, of course, we see what's going on the court. We see statistics, and you as a part of the coaching team, you see what is during a practice. You see how the players work to develop their skills. And from your perspective, which Pelicans young players still haven't shown yet their real attitude or the potential that they've got?
Well, I think a lot of our guys, the sky is really the limit. When you talk about Zion being 20 years old, and last year he played in the post primarily. This year he was on the ball a lot. I know he's going to invest more into his shooting and defense. I think that those are two big things for him, because right now he scores a lot at the rim. I think that he wants to expand his game, and I think defensively he wants to take that challenge because all great teams, in my opinion, they win with defense first. Then you talk about Brandon Ingram, still has time to get stronger, be physically stronger. Again, the defensive side of he's the one guy that can score on all three levels. He can score at the rim, he can score mid-range, and he's a very efficient three-point shooter. But I think he wants to take the challenge too defensively to be a better defensive player for us, because it's going to start with those two guys. So those two guys are really the bookends to this team. And then we got to put some guys around them that fit that. But every single one of our guys, like all of us, especially our young players, we see great room for improvement. But at the same time, it's really upside. You know, when you talk about, you know, Kyra Lewis, you talk about Zoe's a young player, you talk about Najee Marshall's a young player. I mean, I can go on and on about all the youth that we have on this roster. Nikhil, very young. So this was a year for them to show that they belonged in the league, which I think they accomplished. They accomplished the fact that, yes, they belong in this league. They can be good players. Now the next step is for us to show that we have a competitive, winning culture and environment that they can really succeed in, and proving that they belong in that. So it's always a process. You have to take those necessary steps. You know, Nikhil didn't play a whole lot. Kyra was in college last year. You know, Jackson was in college 2 years ago. You know, so all of our young players, I mean, there's just so much upside that we see in them that we're excited about. But now they have to take the next step, not to prove that they belong, because they've done that. Now they need to prove that they know how to win.
Mm-hmm. I've got also some questions from Pelicans, Polish Pelicans fans.
Okay.
From Rafał, who got the website pelicans.pl, and he is really great New Orleans fans. Also from Daniel. The question is, what are the biggest challenges to being a coach at such a young team? You mentioned a lot of talented young guys, and what is the biggest aim for you and for being coach, and to try to help them to develop their skills?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, you're going to coach, and you're going to coach your tail off. You're going to do your work with the video. You're going to coach them in practice. I think the one thing is we didn't have a lot of time to practice. I mean, we maybe practiced 1 or 2 times the last 2 months of the season. There was just no time. So you're not going to see that day-to-day improvement, because you have to rest in order to play that next game. But I think that's the first thing. I think that you know, got to continue to do your work with the video, do your work on the court, coach them during the game the best that you can to help them. I think the other thing is they have to go through the trial and the fires. You know, like I said, there's so many things that all these young players bring to the equation. We have great talent on our team, but sometimes when you don't know, you don't know, and it's not their fault. Like I said, Jackson Hayes was in college 2 years ago. Didn't play, you know, minimal minutes as a rookie. Same thing with Nikhil. Kyra was in college. Najee was in college. Like, we had a lot of guys that just weren't playing a whole lot. So they didn't know that they didn't know what it takes to win. So now they at least know that they don't know what it takes to win. So they're going to be even hungrier, right, to have that attention to detail, to have that willingness and fight defensively for loose balls, to take charges, to rebound the basketball. Like, they're going to get better at those things, because now they know, hey, there's things that I'm going to have to improve, and they will. We have great work ethic in this organization, with this team, with these players. So I can see us taking a big step next year, because these guys and the character of these guys and the work ethic of these guys, it lends itself to really believing that we're going to take that next step next year.
And how it was to play with the empty stands, because Stan Van Gundy mentioned about the changing the scheme for the defense. Of course, it's the result of the last COVID-19 season and the really tough year. But do you see the really impact, positive or negative, of this situation?
It was a difficult year, and I'm someone that prides himself on mental toughness and physical toughness, and no complaining, no whining. But I'll say this: that was a taxing year. Like, I was tired during the season. Every day you're waking up, you got to take a test. They're going to go through your nose. They're going to go through your throat. You're going to wear this mask. You're going to get on the plane. You're going to wear this mask. You can only eat if there was a longer than 2-hour flight. You're going to get to the hotel. The hotel is shut down. There's no people there. There's no chance for like interaction. right? Between really players, families, friends. You don't see them. The cities are all shut down. There's nowhere to go. You're pretty much in your hotel the whole time. When you're on the road, when you're home, you're either at the practice facility or at your house because you can't really go out. There's no energy in the arena. When you go out there, it's an empty place. As a human being, as a basketball player, I loved playing in front of people. It gave me something to look forward to. Seeing friends in the stands, seeing family in the stands, none of that was going to be there. I mean, it was an exhausting year. It really was, and a very challenging. You have to love the game, and our guys, I'll give them a lot of credit that they came to play. I mean, we didn't always play great, but we competed. We were in games that's beating teams like Boston on the road, beating the Clippers at home, beating Denver on the road. Like we competed at a high level when there wasn't that adulation, there wasn't that fanfare, there wasn't that feeling in the arena that you normally have at home or on the road. And then just seeing our cities, like going into Portland and seeing the boards on the buildings, the tents, seeing the homelessness, seeing all the different things that we see on there. It was at times very depressing, and then we got to go play basketball, and so our guys are truly professional, and we gave ourselves a shot. And I think if we would have been healthy down the stretch, we might have had a chance to get in the play-in, but it just didn't work out that way. But it was a taxing year, one that I had no idea it was going to be this difficult.
We, as you mentioned, we saw Zion Williamson more ball in his hand, more playmaking. This point, Zion strategy looks like it works. But I'm really curious also about in which aspects do you think he could develop? Do we talk about making shots, about his experience, leadership? In which places where he could develop to be better? And I'm really, really crazy about the idea that he could be even better than he is now.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost for our team, not just Zion, but for our team, we can't be a 22nd ranked defensive rating team. For us to truly take a step, we're going to have to be top 15, top 10, or higher for us to truly take a step. We have to eliminate the layups. We have to protect the paint. We have to keep teams off the free throw line. And then we have to close and contest and drive shooters off the line. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to do as a team. And Zion plays a big part of that. I think that the credit and the blame, unfortunately, always is going to lie on two guys' heads, in terms of the players, and that's Brandon and Zion. So if those guys set the example, we take a big step defensively. And I think that's the first thing. I think for Zion, yes, I mean, from an offensive standpoint, expanding his game a little bit where now they can't just sit in the paint on him. I think that it'll be interesting to see how much better he'll get in terms of getting to a second side and not just the initial action. Whereas he sets the table, yes, but maybe the ball has to come back to him, because I think that all players are better after movement, after playing inside out, and seeing that part of his game develop. And the outside shooting, which he has a nice shot. I mean, our coaches, Fred Vincent and our coaching staff, they've done a good job, and he's really bought into expanding his game, his free throw percentage going up, his 3-point percentage and attempts going up, but still not getting away from what he does great. And that's attack the basket, put pressure on the rim, put pressure on the paint, and then score it or make his teammates better.
When we are talking about another young, talented Pelicans players, Alexander Walker and Marshall, do you think that there is a chance that in the next season their role in the roster will be higher?
I think so. I think Nikhil has shown that he can score the basketball at a high level. He's a very good on-ball defender. He really gets into the basketball. I think that there's really so much room for his development, his ability to make plays for other players. I think that must continue to improve for him. I think as a team defender, and I'm going to talk about defense a lot, becoming a great team defender where he's a guy that, yes, protects the rim, not necessarily shot blocking, but just his body being there, being pulled in, being ready, being a great closeout defender, being a great pull-in defender. But Nikhil has all the attributes of being a really good shooting guard, point guard, can play both positions, can set the table, but also can score it. So, and he's a great kid. He really is. He wants to be good. He wants to be great. He challenges himself. He got a little banged up, and he was really, really diligent and professional about getting in and trying to do everything he can to get back on the court and be healthy and really provide something for us, whether it was a starter or off the bench.
Mm-hmm. At the end of our conversation, could you say some funny story from the Pelicans locker room from this season 2021, or is it top secret?
Funny stories? I mean, I painted a picture of doom and gloom, but we have great guys. We do. We have great guys that they really enjoy being around each other. Really nothing funny or crazy. And I'm the kind of guy that I'm from the airplane to the bus to my hotel room to my computer. So if there were funny stories, if they weren't in those 4 spots, I didn't see it, but I can't tell you enough. Great guys, great coaches. I learned a lot this year. Really enjoyed being around Stan, being around Bob, being around Fred, Casey, all of our player development, great guys, Corey Brewer, Spoon, Darnell, Bano. Like we got a great staff that had to learn about each other as well. Like we had never, I worked with Bob and Stan, but the rest of us had never worked together. So that's going to make us better as well. Just being able to be around each other each day, learn from each other, learn about each other to make us a better team, a better organization. So funny stories, I don't have any. I'm not a funny guy anyways, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about our team, and I'm really excited about getting back to work once the season kicks off again.
Well, Rex, thank you very much for conversation. Well, before NBA draft, maybe I should wish luck for Pelicans, but unfortunately, I'm Orlando Magic fan, so as you can imagine, I cannot wish you the very top place in the lottery. But lottery is lottery, so we will see who will have more luck. Thank you very much for this conversation. It was nice to hear the story about your NBA career and also from the Pelicans from the 2020-21 season. So have a nice afternoon, and thank you for spending time and give some this answer, especially Polish Pelicans fans. I guess that will be really, really happy with this.
Well, I appreciate it. To all my Polish Pelican fans, we appreciate you. And next year, we'll hopefully see you in the playoffs.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rex.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.